Yeah, that's awesome. I think you're
Hey,
the
Emily.
person.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
That's good.
Hello.
Lucky can't make it today, so it's just me. I'm sorry.
I don't think Charlie can make it either. It's me.
The men.
We'll take
I'm
just
here for you all.
Man, there's a real man right there.
How's it going?
So it seems like you have a diamond going through your head.
I know.
Oh,
this is
yeah.
Strange. I'm at a friend's house and I don't know how to describe that. A diamond. I thought it sort of looked like I can't remember what, like a bird or something. I don't know. It's kind of cool though.
Excellent. Okay, 101, let's get going. We are missing a couple people, I guess. You guys, small group to start. Hello. I'm just gonna leave this on. We are moving along rapidly. We've done the intro. We've done renewable energy. We've done electric. We've done diet. And today we're talking about flying. This is the agenda. It's very simple. Here comes Blake. So the first thing we are going to do in our new process is we are going to do a live update of the leaderboard. So Meg is going to put that in the spreadsheet, in the chat.
Yep, just put the link to that in the chat.
So if you guys can just click on that and update whatever if you made some progress this week. Hi Blake, welcome. Oh yeah, Blake is on it. Blake, there's a link in the spreadsheet, so in case you have made any movement, you can update it. Oh, and it should be. All right, sorry, I hope that didn't screw anyone up. I just sorted it. So everyone got that? Got that?
Mm-hmm.
Any help? Makes sense?
Yep.
Just put the
And we're
number-
going to go over the flight budget one today, right?
Terrific. But yeah, 0 to 4 or did before, and just throw it in. Yeah, we're up to the second to last one. That's awesome. Everyone has been successful in getting some renewable energy. Didn't have it before. Really starting. Uh-oh, Blake just might have pulled into third. And again, this is all mostly for fun and totally unfair and unscientific. So that's that. Anyone need any more time? Are we generally good there?
Good.
I'm good.
I think, Ken, you should have one in column I.
Column I, let's see, column GH. Well, I bought Rex. Aren't Rex
bought
and
Rex.
Offset's slightly different? Or
I don't think you did buy Rex. You
I
bought
bought Offsets?
I think so.
How many points do I lose for not knowing what I bought? Let's see.
I realize it's, yeah, they're
I'm
both in
still
there.
slightly confused.
None.
Yeah, fair enough. So-
How do you know what he bought?
well, because I see when they're bought via the Carbonauts, I see a order.
I bought it through the Carbonaut website. which worked really well.
Except I've sold you something else.
Okay, so let me change my scores around here.
They're similar. They're similar. So RECs are just tied very specifically to renewable energy.
Okay.
And offsets are sort of more general.
But in both cases, when you buy it, you're basically giving money to a project that is helping the environmental situation, help the whole situation.
Yep, exactly right.
So it's just RECs, you're giving it to something that if you can't get renewable energy and like electricity or something, it helps them provide that.
Yeah, it literally makes it happen. So by doing that, you are adding that to RECs, means that someone had to make some green energy and put it into the grid. And so
I also want to buy RECs as well. So I'm going to update myself 4 there, and I'm going to downgrade myself to 1 here.
All right.
Graham, will the value of a REC rise?
Will the value of a REC over time? I would suspect that RECs should get cheaper over time. In time. While offsets are probably the opposite, because offsets are sort of low-hanging fruit at this point. So as it gets trickier, those will probably go up. I guess there might be some volume and competition, but yeah, RECs should, renewable energy is getting cheaper and cheaper. So in theory, your RECs probably will go down. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you all have a RECs website as well?
No, it's just on the same Carbonauts. It's basically RECs and offsets in the same. Just one of the. There are 2 offsets, 2 different types of offsets.
Oh, got it. Okay, that explains it. Okay, I'll buy the RECs tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk about your footprint. So this was the pie chart of the pod, your sort of opportunities for reductions, sort of the big 5. The 5th is offsets, and flying is by far the biggest. In fact, it's at 11 tons, so quite big, and that makes sense. That is, for our general friends, I would say, it's probably fairly common, so 11 tons. The range is ginormous. It's from 3 to 89, so a ginormous difference, and that's because people live different lives. Some of us grew up from a few miles away. Some of us grew up 5,000 miles away, and so some of us fly for work, some of us don't. So it really moves around. That said, it's a very big opportunity. So let's get into flying. This is, I'm going to step out of the way here just to point this out. So this is 2 slides. I had to split into 2 slides. This is showing basically the emissions for how you move yourself around. And to the right is more, and to the left is less. So the left is greener, obviously. You will see that at the top right is first class airplane, then business class, then economy plus, economy premium, I guess, or whatever, and then economy class. And so planes, because it's not that easy to fly, so they use a lot of fuel and they have a lot of emissions. And so I'll point out a few interesting things. One is that there are each of these is on a bar, and that's because there are some variations depending on what kind of vehicle you are in, what kind of plane, what kind of car, but also how many people are in that vehicle. And so at a larger level, you can see for planes that first class has a lot more emissions than economy, and so on. You'll also note that the SUV, the next on the list, or in the middle there, depending on how many people are in the car, is actually as inefficient as flying. So a big SUV can really make that happen. Then we have car, a little more efficient, motorcycle, clearly more efficient. And then the best hybrid is right there, so a lot more efficient than those. So that's, we're down to cars. And same graph, just different way to look at it, and we're even further to the left. So we got train up there, and then a dirty E means if you're driving an electric car on dirty electricity. So you have to think of the source. Then the average, then Canada has clean energy, so it's lower, and then clean energy, and then a bus. And so, you know, the long and short of it is just that electric cars are a very efficient way to get around. Done right, they are close to riding in a big bus full of people. And so that's great. And the other part of this, of course, is that flying is huge. So we're, you know, this clean E electric vehicle is sort of, you know, around 25 grams. And if I go back a slide, you can see that first class is at 500 grams. So that's like 20 times driving that electric car. Now, of course, they are somewhat different things. You're not going to drive across the country at the drop of a hat. So that's part of the challenge. The way that flight causes climate change is that it burns a lot of fuel, and that carbon goes into the air, and that makes a bit of a little blanket around the planet, and that keeps the heat in. But it also, planes do other things. So they create clouds via the vapor, I think maybe the nitrogen oxide. And so they do multiple things that cause warming, and a few things that cause some cooling. Interesting. So that's the blue parts. And so that's why it's more than just the fuel. It's also like the contrails that are created that you see following planes. And there are a lot of planes up there that actually holds heat in. So it would be terrific if we had a real opportunities to make planes more efficient. The problem is that there just isn't much. Like, we have to go to a whole new way of doing things, which they are looking at. There are some sustainable fuels. There are pretty soon, actually, we're going to have short haul electric planes, which is very cool. Long haul is going to be very difficult. But airlines, their biggest cost is fuel. And so they've been very incented to be as efficient as possible. And so unfortunately, all the progress, or most of the progress, has been made. It's still being made, but most of it's been made. Okay, so who is responsible for most of the flight emissions in the world? We are very much, the US is, so by far. And this isn't per capita either. So like China has like 3 or 4 times the population, but they're still much less than the US. And so, yeah, it's very much a US phenomenon. Of course, there are other people, but the US is a really big one. And what's interesting on this graph, you'll notice, is that domestic is a really big part of it, like 2/3 of it. And that's probably because US is a very big country, and we fly around. We've made it so that flight is very cheap and makes it easy, and so yeah, so we are very much the ones doing most of the emissions in terms of flight. What's also interesting is that out of those people, the vast majority are frequent flyers, which, if you think about it, sort of makes sense. So, you know, some people fly for work. They might fly once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. But that, you know, once a week is literally 50 flights a year. It's a ton of flying. And so frequent flyers make up a big chunk of that. So we are quite different. Also, the average American flies once a year. And so, you know, with this group, most of us are flying many, many times that. And so, yeah, we're very different from the rest of the world. And so you'll often hear, oh, it's only a couple percent, and that's true. It's 2 or 3% of the total, but it's coming from a really small number of people comparatively. And the real challenge is that, as you guys have noticed, flights have gotten cheaper and cheaper, and they're really expanding globally. So lots of other countries are really starting to fly more and more like we do. In fact, air transport is the fastest growing transport there is, at about 5% a year. And it's tracking to be 25% of the overall in 2050. So obviously, it might feel somewhat small now, but it's it's done by not many people, and it's growing rapidly to become a real huge thing. So the net is that it's huge. And listen, on a personal level, this is the 100% the hardest thing for me. So if this is a challenging thing for you, I get it. I'm a son of an airline pilot. I've been to like 90 countries. I love travel more than anything. It's a very challenging thing. The silver lining of it, though, as you're looking at this stuff, there is very much stuff to do. We'll talk about optimizing, but like skipping a flight, figuring out how to skip a flight by stacking flights or what have you, makes a really, really big difference. And so I think there's just, we just have to mostly just reframe and just appreciate it in a way that we didn't, and just be a little more careful with it. So I want to give you guys a sense of scale of these things. The distance matters. And so, one just general concept to really understand is that distance really matters. And so for coming from LA, one trip, I would to take a trip to Bali, it would be the equivalent of 14 trips down to Cabo. And so that leads me to just think very carefully about doing the big long ones, and also just think like, okay, what am I really after? And can that be had closer to home? And so, Cabo, for example, has got the Baja is amazing. There's all sorts of stuff there, and maybe I don't need to go elsewhere. I can stick closer to home. To give you some perspective on flight emissions, let's have a quick look at these. And I should note that these are all economy. And so if it was business or first class, it would be, depending on whose calculations you look at, 2, 3, 4 times as much. And so the net here is that flights emit significant amounts of carbon. So shorter flights, 0.3, 0.6 of a ton. From here, really like halfway across the Pacific and back, but to go to Maui and back is 1.6. To cross the country, 1.9. To London, 4.6. So, you go pretty quickly from half a ton to 2 tons to 6 tons to 8 tons. And so LA Bali, if that was first class, that probably is in the 20 to 30 tons, like a full, more than an American's footprint in a single flight for a single person. So yeah, so flights are big. I bring this slide back just to have a look at the top 3: utilities, diet, and driving. And just if you're here, it's because you care about this stuff, you're thinking about carbon, you want to make a difference. So I just want you to be conscious of the effort that you would put towards different things and how you might do it in different ways. So, you can do your utilities. You could skip one LA Hong Kong flight, long flight, but that's all it would take. Driving, one LA to Rome flight. Your entire, changing your diet significantly could be 2 cross-country flights.
This is a year.
This is looking at a year. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so you have to skip that flight again and again to do the same. But just the point is, ideally we really try to figure out what really matters to us and just try to be pragmatic about where we put our efforts. And so flying, figuring out how to skip a flight is really significant. I mean, look at that. The diet is 3.5. There are many flights that could be 3.5. Right? It's that easy. Okay, so let's talk about, we're going to talk about how to reduce flights, and then we're going to talk about how to optimize them. The first thing we want to do is really reframe things. And so a big one I would say is just that we have to just acknowledge that flying is really special. It's a very cool thing. A famous comedian talks about it as, everyone should be going like, ah, because they're in a chair in the sky. It is the coolest thing. We can easily get to incredible places without much effort and not even that much money compared to before anyway. And so flying's really amazing. And so we want to, in a way, look at it as an example. If you really like beef and you're thinking about your diet, just thinking about it differently. Think about it's a special thing. It's more for sort of special occasions. Just try to really, really value it as the special thing that it is. Also, sometimes it really sucks. And so getting rid of those flights should be fairly easy because there are many, many advantages. And so this is, I'll step away from this, but thought this was sort of a funny cartoon. And of course, humor always is pointing at some piece of reality. That was sort of great. So flying is, it's terrible. It's gonna make you exhausted. It can be super frustrating. It's definitely a great way to get sick. It's definitely a way to get jet lagged. And if you're doing it for work, generally you can be homesick. Like there are a lot of flying, not a lot of flying, but flying, certainly some of it, certainly for work can really be not that great. So figuring out how to get less of those is good. We also probably want to start questioning what's cool now that we are coming into an understanding of what this stuff really means and what it's doing to us. So I would say we want to question things like the surgical trip. So a surgical trip is like surgery where you sort of go in, get something, and get out. And so this is like the 3-day trip across the country to Vegas. It's the just the very short trip. And I've just not even thinking about it from an environmental perspective, but for years been sort of trying to do like, I don't want to ever go any place for less than a week because you want to recognize its specialness and it's going to cost you a bunch of money and it's a big hassle, often a hassle. You got to organize it. And so I think we want to try to discourage. So ideally, and not too long, it's just people would say like, why are you doing that? Let's think about how we can do this differently. Often people fly just to fly also. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The Million Mile Club, the Road Warrior. This is definitely something that's been like a badge of honor that people really working on getting their miles, and this is like a really important thing. And it's like, I might have screwed this up actually, but whatever it is, it's hundreds, 500, 1,000. It is an unbelievable amount of emissions. It's like hundreds of years of your utilities. And so I think we also really want to, and listen, a lot of people didn't know this stuff. But now that we're starting to know, we just need to move past the Million Mile Club. It's really, miles are, miles may be used for hotels, but maybe not for flying. So we want to reframe things in a number of different ways. The big thing here is planning ahead. So there's a lot that you can actually do, but it really comes via planning. And so what we recommend is literally trying to look at it on like a quarterly basis. Just set a reminder ongoing every 3 months and basically take that, and it might be 5 minutes, but you just sort of look at, okay, what trips are being planned? Am I being asked to do, or do I need to do whatever? Just try to think about what's coming up such that you can orchestrate things better, perhaps optimize. And we'll give you a little bit more of that. You've got two main levers in this. One is frequency, so how often you fly, and the second is like eating, is portion size, like how far you fly. And so those are the ones you want to think about. And how far you fly is often like, can those things be done closer to home, perhaps without an airplane? Okay, so to help reduce, you want to do a flying budget, and we will show you that. The way to do this, and we've created a little spreadsheet for you guys to help you guys, but this is just to try to get you conscious about how it works and what flights are what and how they compare. And you might start thinking, wow, that I can go to this place or this place, but the second place is half the footprint. There's we will give you a link for this, but there's a Atmosphere we quite like. It's a German group. Basically, you easily just put in your flights, pick your whether you're flying economy or business or first class, and then it'll tell you what your emissions are. We have included a cheat sheet for that in the spreadsheet to help you if you don't want to do that. And so here's an example for Graham for 2020. And so I put in sort of the stuff I did at the beginning of the year, and I think I've got one left that I haven't done yet. But I basically sort of figured out all the kilograms of emissions and added them all up. And so I ended up at 4 tons, which isn't great. It just sort of is what it is. And it's a good process, because in that process, I realized, wow, get an understanding what the flights are. And I do have a couple of long ones, but I don't have any extra longs. But you get a real sense of what's what. And so we have a spreadsheet for you in the homework, and that's what we encourage you to do. Just like sit down, scope out your next year or your last year, and then just get a sense of what it is, and then get a sense of how that feels. Are you 2 tons or 42 tons, and are some of those something you can do something about? The fourth thing is, of course, telecommuting. Luckily, COVID has done wonders for that. I've been doing this literally since 2000, so it's a funny thing to me. But yeah, it's so much easier to work remotely, and people are starting to understand that it's just that flying across the country for that meeting just doesn't make a ton of sense. Saves you a lot of money, keeps people happy. Not to say that in-person relationships aren't critical importance, but maybe you do some of that, and then you do a bunch of telecommuting. So, vacationing closer to home is another big one. So a great example here in LA, I can go to Mexico to see the desert. I can go to like far off Africa, but you would hope that I at least had explored the stuff locally, which there's some incredible deserts. It's just one of many examples, being luckily living here in California. Also just great cities. So there's a lot often, I lived in New York City for 19 years and I never went to the Statue of Liberty. I mean, maybe that's a crappy example, but just don't forget about the stuff near where you live, because that can definitely shut your footprint down a bit. Okay, this one's very cool. It's about trip stacking. And it's basically the idea is you fly in triangles. So if I had to fly, I had to make a trip to London and I had to make a trip to New York. There are sort of 2 ways of doing that. One is as separate trips, and one is at putting them together, stacking them so they're together. And so I just put together the numbers here. And so the separate trips, of course, I fly from here to London and then back. I fly from here to New York and back. The stacked trips, I fly from here to New York, spend some time there, fly to London, then fly back from London. And so it's just very simple. I'm flying in a triangle and putting them all together. And I end up saving a couple of tons in that example, about 30% overall. So really, really big savings. I save a bunch of carbon. I also save a leg. I don't have to do one of those flights. That's not waking up, setting my alarm, packing once again, unpacking once again, going to the airport, all that stuff. I don't have to do that. And I save the money for that flight. So it's real money. Also less risk of jet lag, getting sick, so this is a stupidly simple thing, but stacking your trips can make a real difference. You still get the same experiences. You're still going to London, you're still going to New York, but it's better for your health, you're better for the planet, and saving you a bunch of money. So definitely consider stacking trips. The last and final way to reduce is just go less often, but for longer. So maybe you're going to visit your parents. Instead of going twice a year for 4 days, you go once for 10 days, and you can probably spend more time because you're having less travel time. All right, so that's reducing. Now, the ones that you have to take, how can you optimize them? Turns out there are some things you can do. So the cheat here is a site called Skyscanner. And basically, it's like a kayak kind of thing, but they have a cool green function that will help you figure it out. And so what you see here in the bottom left of the page, basically run on Skyscanner, you run a search. It's a little bit weird because it sort of hides it, but you run a search and then you go down to the left bottom and there's a little green or flight thing you check. And what it does is it shows you the greener choices. And sometimes they're only a few percent and sometimes they're a lot. In this case, it's somehow 79%. So it can be a big difference. And so this is a great cheat. Go ahead, Blake.
Why is it emitting? Is it because of the airplane?
Yeah,
Type-
so they're looking at airplanes and I think loads also. Yeah, so a few things they're looking at to figure it out. And so we're going to go into a little bit more of the specifics. And so really the cheat is use Skyscanner, but if you want to sort of do it yourself, then there's a system called NERD. NERD stands for, you want to fly new planes, because new planes, every new one is like 15% or something roughly more efficient than the last model. Like sort of like big new model, and then they probably every version within there is another 5%. So new planes are definitely more efficient. This is basically showing you that. So different airlines have newer or older fleets, and so end up having overall different numbers. And so you want to ideally fly airlines with the newer fleets. Then you want to fly economy, and this is just very simple. If you're going to divide up the emissions for the plane, then it should be by space. And so if you fly first class or business, you take up more space, and so you end up you're responsible for that share. The cool thing about economy is it still has the same similar views, Wi-Fi, and cocktails. Now, some would say, but the plane is going already. Like, why does that doesn't make any sense? That doesn't make any sense. Well, the point here is it's all about supply and demand. So if less and less people ask for business or first class, they will swap those out for economy seats. Like, that is clear. If less and less people book a certain leg of a flight, they will cut the number of legs down. So it's very clear supply and demand. Airlines are not flying empty planes around or as little as possible. So it's very clear supply and demand. So you also, interestingly, want to fly regular size planes. So we're going through the NERD system here. Regular just means basically the small regional jets are inefficient, as are the huge 747 sort of 4-engine ones. And so what really you want the mid-size narrow body 2 engines if you're going to get specific and follow sort of NERD. And also, of course, direct. Direct is going to be less miles. Also, a lot of the emissions are in the takeoff and the landings. And so flying direct, not only is it a great thing for your lifestyle, less screw-ups and problems, and certainly quicker, it's also better environmentally. So you try to reduce, and then you optimize the rest, and then you offset the rest. And so our suggestion for that is basically, and we will do that, or we're going to talk about that. We're going to do that next class. Basically, we're going to project forward a little bit. So we want you to look at your footprint in, say, 6 months. We've been able, perhaps, if there are any larger remaining items to be worked on. So we want you to look at your future self, not that far out, and basically include your flying in that, and then offset. And this is probably somewhat confusing and definitely open to suggestions. So this is where Ken went to buy Rex. This is on our website, and we basically put the offsets and the Rex in the same thing. Maybe we should put them separate. And so, yeah, on the far right are the Rex, and then the 2 ones on the left are offsets. And we gave you 2 projects. And I guess partly why this is confusing is because you haven't done the offsets thing, because that's next class. But we will go into that, and basically offsets are a bit of a mixed bag. You really want to get high quality ones, and so we were able to figure out a way to get specific kinds of projects and also get them at less than retail by working with TerraPass. So yeah, so the idea would be that you would whatever flights you still have are part of your footprint, and you would offset them ideally all at once with the rest of your footprint. Summary. This is the cheat sheet. So first of all, you want to reduce. That's about reframing how you look at flying, period. It's about planning ahead and setting a calendar thing ideally, and really looking ahead and revising as you go. It's about creating a flight budget, so you get really conscious, you have an understanding of what it's looking like, and then ideally are tweaking that as you go and looking back. Telecommuting, amazing. Vacationing closer to home, like, do you really, whatever you are after, can you get it closer to home, or do you really need to go to that place? Stacking trips, so fly in triangles, great way to save some money and hassle, and then go less often but longer. And then optimizing, simplest thing is really just use Skyscanner, but we went through Nerd, and so if you want to do that, great. Newer planes, fly economy, fly midsize, and fly direct. And finally, once you've done all that, you're still going to have some flying unless you totally quit, which would be amazing, but not many people will ever do. You want to offset whatever's left over. We recommend offsetting as part of your offsetting your whole footprint. Okay, quick working session here. I think we're doing good on time. Let's go do two things. It's going to walk you through a bit of a, go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, I just have another question. I was looking up the miles per gallon for some of the traditional models of aircraft, and they range between 70 and 100 miles per gallon per seat. And so if you compare that with driving, there's not really an additional efficiency if you take road trips, right? Because if you have two people in the car and you're averaging 70 to 100 miles per gallon, then you're netting out at around 35 to 50 miles per gallon. So there would never be a suggestion to take road trips as opposed to flights, right?
Well, if you're driving electric and or you have a efficient car with a bunch of people in it, it might pencil. The fly in the ointment there is that there's this thing called radiative forcing, which is basically a factor that you multiply by the tons that people normally calculate. And some people think it's like 1.9, some people go as high as 4. And this is to do with basically cloud science and trying to figure out all the contrails and all those other effects that the plane does besides just the gas. And so it's definitely a little tricky. But yeah, you can, I mean, certainly, like my plan for here is to try to get a great electric car with good range so I can do like long road trips. Because yeah, certainly that can be a more efficient way.
Okay.
Oh, I'm happy to go over that with you.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the data backs that up, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I guess there are other considerations.
Yep, exactly. So here is so we did decision tree, which you guys have access to, and I'm just going to walk you through it. So this is just, going through decisions. So first of all, do a flight carbon budget, mostly just to get conscious and just have an idea where you're going and what is it? What does it look like? Then plan ahead each quarter, revise, look at it again. Then if something's proposed, is it important? No, don't fly. Yes, could it be done via video? Great, don't fly. It can't be done via video. Could this thing happen closer to home? So I could take a bus, train, ferry, shorter flight there, and then maybe you change things. If it can't, then could you stack it with another trip? You know, that's the big one. It's like, okay, well, I got to head east. Okay, well, maybe if I'm going to New York, then it's time to go see my family in Quebec at the same time. So that the stacking is a big one. So you want to fly in triangles. And then once you realize, okay, I have to take a flight, then you want to go direct economy and use Skyscanner ideally to figure out a flight, and then offset the rest. Oh yeah, there's Skyscanner. We showed you that. So that's it. And open for questions. Actually, I guess this is where the questions really should be. Let's do that. Any feelings, thoughts, questions on flying?
I'm feeling a little bad. We're flying to Australia at Christmas.
Yeah, of course.
So I imagine that's a huge, but I guess, you know, in buying offsets, we're going direct.
Yeah.
They're flying Premier economy. Looking for an upgrade? No. No.
I think you can. One argument is that you can, if you didn't buy the first class or the business, but then you're at the airport and you upgrade, it's like it didn't affect the demand.
Okay. All right.
But I don't know. Yeah, there are all sorts of games we can play. Yeah, listen, it's tough, and that's why I mentioned it. You knew I was mentioning it because of you. I mean, it's like, you know.
I mean, we are far from home, so, and we probably, I mean, we've only done one trip this year, so usually Lockie would do a whole lot, and now he's doing a lot more on Zoom. So his travel is, I mean, he's in a plane every other week, and so COVID slowed him right down, and obviously helped to transform a lot of thinking around being in a room with people is the thing to do. So, yeah,
it's tough. I mean, it's tough, and that's I think what Carbonauts is trying to say is just like try to get conscious of all this stuff, and that will.
Yeah.
I would really love to connect you with my friends in Bali, all the families in the green school who send their kids to be Carbonauts themselves, but are flying around more than any people I've ever met in my life. It is insane. I think we should just hook them up with you for the offsetting, because they're like, I'm being so green. My child is going to this school, and no one carpools, no one. Our kids were calling us out on it, saying, wait a minute, I thought that this school was about sustainability, but it's the least sustainable. Yeah.
That's tough.
Anyway.
And I mean, in people's defense, often people really don't know, you know?
No, and they I think would appreciate. So yeah, they'd be open to it.
Or not.
We are giving up both our SUVs though.
Oh, amazing.
So that's good.
That's great. You can see why I'm slowly getting invited to less and less dinner parties.
Yeah. We might get them back when we come back. No. No, but we do. The leases ended anyway. Like it just happened to be that way. So they're both going back, and now we're both going to get either hybrid cars or an electric car. So you have a big impact on this household, which is good.
That's great. And you saw that graph. I mean, it's a big difference. So
yeah,
that's terrific. That's terrific. Any other? You have a chainsaw. So I'm just gonna close this window. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Not for now.
I think it's very interesting that the SUV is the same as an economy flight. That's crazy.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It
And
doesn't seem
again,
like there's much of a difference between, along the lines of what Blake was saying. It's like, I don't know if I get the math of why it's worse, but the relationship between driving and flying for a given distance is not nearly as much as I had thought.
yeah, it's surprising. Also, though, even the thing about flying versus driving is you're not just gonna jump in a car and drive across the country very often.
Exactly.
I mean, like there's a real convenience thing. So even if
Yeah.
the differences aren't as great, you just
Yeah.
like people will
It's not gonna
fly
happen.
4 times cross country easy, right?
Right.
They're never gonna drive 4 times. So that's a big one.
Right. It makes you feel like just how more the distance is the issue and flying is enabled going long distances.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, really, it certainly has. Okay, so we're doing so good on time today. That's great. We are next week is the last capsule, and that is on offsets. The idea behind this is we're trying to look at this as like a 6-month thing, and so you'll have taken 6 weeks of those 6 months, and so about 4.5 months later, we want to check in with you guys and run a footprint. And so the idea there is that some of this stuff, like getting rid of your SUVs, takes some time. Getting solar on your roof, whatever. Some of these are longer term things. And so we want to give you some time to do that. And so we haven't done a great job, but we are going to do a better job in keeping touch with all Carbonauts for that period, just sort of kind of remind you and share success stories and that sort of stuff. So next class, first of all, if you can make a last push, we're trying to get stuff done so your leaderboard looks good. We are going to run a footprint. We're going to want you to find your original footprint. Okay, and then we're going to, oh, I forgot something. Okay, so we're going to have your original footprint, and then we're going to run one for sort of basically where you're at now at the end of the course. Hopefully you've made some, I'm glad everyone has made some progress. So we'll look at our new footprints, and then we're going to have you project forward 4.5 months to that period and think about what other stuff you're going to get done. So we have an idea of sort of where we were, where we are now, and where we plan to be within the next 4.5 months. And then we can look at that. And yeah, hopefully we're in the sort of 10, 20, 30, 40%. But that depends on sort of where you're coming from and your various parameters. So just want you to think about this being a week to give a last push and getting stuff finished. And then that we're going to want that data. So think about what you're going to try to do in the ensuing number of weeks. Yeah, and that's it. Now, one thing, I don't know if we did this with you guys yet, but there's something called, for you business people are probably familiar with it. There's something called a Net Promoter Score. Very simple, 0 to 10, or 1 to 10, I guess. Maybe there should be a 0. I don't think I could do that with this software. But the idea is that we want to try to get a very quick rating from all of the pods on each specific class, so we know which ones we have to work on. So just it's all anonymous. Just rate this session very specifically and just be honest. We just want to know. We want to track it. So this is not a long. This takes you, pick one number and go.
Graham, I have another question. This is not related to air travel though.
Okay.
How many people have completed the Carbonauts course?
We are, I'm trying to remember if we are, I think we're at 70, or I can't remember if I added, it's either like 70 or 90, something like that.
And do you track the amount of tonnage that you all are saving, or that you're directly responsible for instigating the change around?
We are, whoops. Record this. Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So my hope is, we want to be able to know, hey, on average, people come in and we get this percentage reduction and this sort of absolute reduction.
So along those lines, wouldn't the biggest thing that we can do to reduce our own carbon footprint would be to get other people to do this too?
Absolutely. Yeah, Absolutely. And so part of the next session is to talk a little bit about that. And I would say that's an area that we know is really important, and we've sort of talked to you certainly at the beginning about it, but we haven't done a great job. So we want to ramp that up because, yeah, if you look at it holistically, which you should, there couldn't be anything more holistic than this. This is a global thing. It's like, it matters what I do, but if I can run a pick my solar thing for my uncle and he ends up getting solar, it's like, it's not my roof, but that's my carbon in a way. Like I made that happen. And so, yeah, absolutely. And so whether you're posting and influencing people or introducing people to doing the Carbonauts or just sharing any specific something or other, yeah, for sure.
Just quickly on the promoting it, do you have a little communication other than your website that you pass to people taking the course to send around?
So we have a page which has been moving around a little bit called Share on the website. I don't know if it's still called
Find
that.
it. I just go on the website.
Yeah, it's under ways to help.
Okay.
And we have a couple of different documents, one specifically for individuals, and then one for organizations, companies, schools, NGOs. And then we have a bunch of social media stuff. I think we've done a crap job, but that is definitely on the list. And one that I would love to see is just you guys, basically, Carbonauts doing their own posts about whatever they've done. I got a new electric car, I signed up for solar, and so like it's great. We do get informally at this point, but emails from people. We just got one this last week from Joe in like North Carolina who got a solar on his roof and super excited. That stuff's really great because this isn't about us, this is about you guys, and so the more we can show that people are actually doing the stuff and excited about it, that's the best of all.
So I've just added the link to the page on the website that has the social media stuff. And also in the chat are all the links to resources that we talked about today. And all of those are also in the workbook that you guys have access to as well.
Great. Love the workbook. It's fantastic to be able to just go back.
Oh, good.
Everything. It's well organized.
Right on. Good to hear.
Good. And you guys can also, you probably already know this, but just to reiterate, you have access to all of the presentations as well in the Google Drive folder.
So we've been recording. We record each one, and they're up there, at least for a period. Any questions? On anything? Renewable energy, electric vehicles, plant-rich diet, food waste, composting.
I can look this up probably quickly, but as I light my wood fire, and we buy wood-fired stoves for our house in Quebec, what are your thoughts on that as a way to heat the house and air pollution?
It's a funny thing. I was literally thinking about looking it up this morning. So I think there are some arguments for wood that wood actually being decent. But regardless of that, I think, and actually Meg might know a lot more about this than I do. There are definitely stoves that do a way better job on reducing particulate and that sort of stuff. So like what are they, Vermont castings or whatever. There's some ones that are just like.
We geeked out on wood stoves this last week. So that didn't come up as a selling feature, but then Charlie and I thought, we should ask them about that. But there's some crazy ones being made in Quebec as well.
Oh yeah.
Crazy as inefficient, and so we'll get back to you if we find out anything.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'd love to know more. And actually, Meg, we really need to answer that one unless you can already.
Yeah, no, I can't remember how the emissions stack up exactly. I need to revisit that. I mean, I do know that The pellet stoves are more, have less, fewer particulate emissions and fewer GHG emissions. But the downside there is that they use an electric auger. So for example, if you're using it as sort of a backup system, like you want it to work if your power to go out, they won't work if your power goes out. So that's one plus, for the like old fashioned, so to speak, wood stoves. They're
Well,
not,
will heat 2,400 square feet.
yeah, so that I think they're not emissions free, obviously, but
Yeah.
but they can be very efficient, I think. So I need to revisit the emissions piece of that as well. I just can't remember. I haven't looked at it in
We will also.
in a
We'll
while.
circle back.
Yeah, great. If you find out, let me know.
Yeah. And Graham, you're game to connect with. You probably can connect with the Green School on your own, but I think that they would be keen. The school itself would probably be keen. Anyways, I can chat.
Yeah,
after.
I mean, yeah, of course I'd be game. Of course. Yeah, and yeah, you guys and David Belt and a whole bunch of people have gone there, and then John Hardy is a friend of mine too, so I can ask him. All right, gang. Any other questions or thoughts, or shall we wrap it up?
Thank you.
Thank you very
That's
much.
great.
You guys, see you next week.
See y'all later.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Out.
Oh, everybody's off.